Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Rash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Worldwide.
So glad you've joined us here on this Thursday evening. I normally don't do an evening show. We normally do Sundays at noon Central USA, but it had been a while. I've sort of been out of pocket. They talk about those days when you feel like you're doing the urgent and not the important. I just feel like for the past several weeks, it's just been the urgent, one thing after the other. You know, we had the Oklahoma Free Thought Convention. I was prepping for that, and then I just moved into a home. And those of you who've been through the home purchase process know what a joy that is. So it's just, nonstop this and that and going through the underwriters, and you close on the house, and then you move in, and we're still unboxing, unpacking, trying to hang everything up, and it's just been a real ride. But the dust is finally starting to settle, and honestly, I miss connecting with people. I have really had a tremendous number of emails over the past few weeks that I kind of wanted to reflect on and share with everybody. We wanted to talk about so much that's happening all around the country. I just posted my latest video. It was called Atheists and Sex Offenders. Yes, I know it was a provocative title. It was supposed to be provocative. And so some people say, hey, man, what a great idea. Everybody wants to click and find out what that's about. That's great marketing. And other people think, what are you doing? And I'm amazed at, sometimes I can't, many times I can see the controversy coming when I post something. I just know that train's coming. But sometimes I'm really surprised about what catches on. So I posted this video. Now, of course, we're talking about this online pastor named Michael Stahl in Florida. And I get a lot of heat from people saying, why are you giving this guy press? Why are you giving him the time of day? And I look at these people and I say, Pastor Stahl is a gift. He's the gift. I don't care if 3 people exist in his online congregation. He's a gift because he provides us with an opportunity to draw a big red circle around a very legitimate level of discrimination when it comes to non-believers, atheists. You say the word atheist and many people think child molesters and rapists and drug users and these rudderless, immoral, miserable, sad, crabby, destructive people out there. And honestly, I thought what a great opportunity to remind him that if he was to make a list called the Christian National Registry of Atheists, and he was using well-known people from past and present, the names on there would probably shock him. He probably has no idea that many of the people who influenced pop culture and entertainment, the arts, science, education, literature, non-believers. And so I listed a whole bunch of them. And so I'm throwing names up against the wall, Marie Curie and Bertrand Russell and Brian Cox, and so I chose some, and I put Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear in the list, right? So, most everybody knows who he is. Oh my God, the entire online community starts to divide over whether or not Jeremy Clarkson is evil, so they're all, well, why is he on the list with Albert Einstein? And then, of course, the argument becomes whether or not Einstein was a Christian. And there's a huge group of people out there who are so desperate to co-opt Einstein into the religious movement. And, of course, we always have to remind them that Einstein came back and said it was a lie, what the religious had said about his convictions. And that quote's findable for anybody who cares to look. So it's been kind of a wild week. I think we're up to about 70,000 views on the video, and I want to say thank you to everybody. My favorite part of the story is I told a buddy of mine who's a non-believer about this registry, right? This proposed registry. And I'm sure Pastor Michael Stahl wishes he'd never opened his mouth. No one's heard hiding or hair of the guy. He's gone. That's fine. But he told a non-believing buddy of his who actually went and secured the domain, the Christian National Registry of Atheist.com. Well, he's an atheist, so he went and he got the web domain, and now it's secured by him. And he found a lot of other atheists were visiting the domain because they wanted to do the same thing. So a non-believer controls the domain. So if anybody was to ever do it would actually promote free thinking, skepticism, and the life when it comes to God. It's just beautiful. The people, ask me, why do you give the time of day to people like that? Honestly, I see them as an opportunity. If you'll forgive the cliche, it is a teaching moment. It's a chance for us to remind everybody that while this guy may be, a nobody really knows who he is, there's a tremendous number of people out there who need to be educated about how influential non-believers have been in our culture. So that's a great opportunity to do that. I guess the other big thing on, of course, the agenda is we are just a few days away from the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And that's opened up a whole other can of worms as people talk about conspiracy theories and whether or not we should honor the victims. And there's a big controversy over the cross at 9/11. It's unfortunate because, I agree with Dave Silverman with the American Atheists, and he's a big part of the lawsuit about the cross at 9/11. On the surface, it looks like atheists are the killjoys. We're the ones who are coming out and saying you can't include a Christian cross at the World Trade Center Memorial. And on the surface, for those who just blink and walk away, it looks like we're trying to destroy hope. And the truth is, it's not about that. 9/11 affected everybody, not just Christians. That memorial essentially is a Christian memorial. It excludes non-believers and all the people of other faiths. And again, Dave Silverman has a great article that was posted in July in The Guardian, and I know the American Atheist website has a lot of information on it. And it's a difficult thing, and if you include the cross, well, then what keeps other religions from showing up and saying, hey, we want equal time? And before you know it, it just becomes a shouting match of superstitious people. And quite frankly, if you look at 9/11 objectively, religion was a driving force behind the attack. The Muslim religion, but religion was the problem. I was on the air on a Christian radio station when that attack happened. If you've heard me tell the story, bear with me because I feel like it's appropriate. And it's a cliche to say that 9/11 was one of the things that helped me start to criticize God and my faith. But it's really true for me. There were two main... Honestly, there were probably hundreds of small things, but there were two major events in my life that really started to wake me up. Huge noises that finally started to snap me out of it. One was the death of a popular Christian artist in the 90s. His name was Rich Mullins. And I'll tell that story some other time, or you can review it on another podcast. The second thing, of course, was 9/11. And I was on the air. And I'm working for a Clear Channel radio station. And yes, Clear Channel owned for a very short time a Christian radio station. And I was the morning show host, and I did the show alone. And I'm in there. And Jeff, one of the guys from traffic, runs down the hall. He sticks his head in the door, and he says, hey, man, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. Now, I'm in the business of weird headlines. So I was thinking, oh, geez, man, that's crazy, I didn't stop anything. I was thinking it was a Cessna, some single-engine thing. Some guy lost control, or some, nut job got a hold of a small plane. So I'm thinking, wow, I didn't jump out of my seat and rush to the internet. I was just thinking, wow, that's crazy. And all of a sudden, you started to feel the temperature in the room go up, and the level of activity. We had 6 radio stations. They were all side by side down a long hallway that we called Studio Row. And I noticed that all of a sudden voices were getting louder, things were getting more tense. And so I'm starting to browse the web, and Jeff comes back and he says, another plane just hit, and the phones are starting to ring, and everybody's going crazy now. What's going on? And we've had 10 years to become jaded about that moment. We've seen the footage of the towers falling. We've seen the bodies falling from the wreckage. We've seen We've heard the tapes of the phone calls made from loved ones. But I remember on that day, it was surreal. We were in a cocoon. We had never been attacked on our own soil in America. And it was unfathomable to us, right? We just couldn't believe it. So TVs were up all over the place. And we were just hungry for information. Of course, no one knew anything. They had the cameras trained on the burning towers and what plane disappeared, what happened, are they going to shoot them out of the sky? Was it this element? Was it bin Laden? Was it somebody? No, nobody knew anything. And then people were relying on us in the media for information. And I was in there. Now I'm the Christian at the time. I was working around some pretty hard-living people, and I was Mr. Clean, right? I was the Christian guy, and most people, they didn't invite me to the parties and whatnot. I wasn't known for that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, these people who I worked with and enjoyed, but didn't really know all that well, I had a group of ladies come into the studio, and they worked in one of the business offices down the hall. And they came in and they were sobbing and they were terrified. They were terrified. And of course, I'm thinking, what's going on? What do they want? And they had come to me because they wanted me to pray with them for America. And I said, well, yeah, okay. All right. So, I had a long song on. We stood up. We all stood in a circle. We all joined hands. And I don't remember the words of the prayer, but I can pretty much tell you how it went. It was something along the lines of, Dear Lord, we ask that you deliver us from evil. We ask that you will be with the rescuers as they search for victims. We ask that you will guide us through this tragedy, be with the families of those who have been lost, protect us from future attacks, allow some good to come out of this. I'm sure it was something along those lines. Words of comfort, words we probably heard at tragedy in our own lives when something happens. And I finished the prayer in Jesus' name, amen. And they all hugged me and they all walked out of the room. And I'm standing there in the room by myself. And the words in my mind, I thought, almost said it out loud, we are kidding ourselves. Now, I hadn't come to the point where religion was the problem. I hadn't, that would come years later in my journey. But at the moment, it was, God's a non-participant here. God's way late to this party. The damage is already done. It was perpetrated by humans. The rescues were being conducted by human beings. It was a human situation, nothing supernatural. And we got through the day, and of course, nothing got accomplished for probably 72 hours. They linked all the radio stations together, and they did 24-hour commercial-free news feeds for several days. And it was a while before the dust settled, and we finally started to get our wits about us and to understand what had happened and who had perpetrated it and what it meant. But the towers were gone. Almost 3,000 lives are lost. Many of us beforehand didn't know or care who Osama bin Laden was or Al-Qaeda. We didn't know anything about it. We'd been bubble people. We had been completely isolated and insulated from this kind of thing. And of course, the world changed after that day. And it changed me on the inside. And I sat, I think, dormant for a long time. I didn't really practice or participate in any faith or religious belief, but I just sort of checked out. And finally, after a few years, I came to the conclusion that, you're going to have to discover whatever the truth is. And the truth is that We live in a world where wonderful things happen and horrific things happen. But there's an explanation that is not supernatural. And quite often when we see lives lost, quite often, unfortunately, religion is often the problem. Not always. I'm not one of those people who believes, I'm not even sure do I agree with Christopher Hitchens that religion poisons everything? I see religious organizations doing a lot of good. They feed the hungry. They build houses and shelters. They benefit their community. They give food banks. Now, granted, they are prescribing a divine influence to what is essentially a human act. But they are doing something positive for religious reasons. And so it's a tough one for me. But this particular act, it was motivated by hate, by a foundational document, the Quran, that essentially says that we should be exterminated if we do not believe in Allah. I know that's not popular. That opens up the doors of, is there such a thing as a peace-loving Muslim? Well, I'm sure there are. Many, many. They simply either don't know or don't care about the text in their foundational document. Christians are often the same way when it comes to the Bible. They have no idea what's written in the Old Testament especially, but the Old and New. And there's a lot of blood spilled in those pages. I've seen a lot of activity on the website about it was an inside job, Building 7, the Bush administration, blood for oil. I've seen all these things. And I'll just tell you point blank, I don't buy it. Let me share with you part of a note that I posted just a couple of days ago. And then we'll go to the phones. As we approach the 10th anniversary of the attacks of September the 11th, 2001, I'm reminded of that poster which says 9/11 was a faith-based initiative. And I agree. A group of terrorist operatives perpetrated the worst ever attack on American soil, killing thousands of innocents. Yes, innocents, in a grand scheme to punish the infidel and achieve paradise. I'm convinced that the 9/11 conspiracy stories are simply earnest yet misguided allegations by people eager to disbelieve anything widely accepted in the mainstream, even if the widely held view happens to align with the evidence. Some are possibly motivated by anti-Bush, anti-war, anti-oil, or anti-America sentiments. Others speak in paranoid sound bites that accuse all governments of lying to all people all the time. I hear this all the time, by the way. You don't believe everything your government tells you, do you? The Internet has given a potential spotlight to allegations of all shapes and sizes, allowing them, substantiated or not, to send the masses off on a widely convoluted bunny trail. And while skepticism's healthy, these particular arguments have devolved into something beyond reasonable dialogue. I mean, they feed on other conspiracy theories. They also feed on themselves. Personally, I agree with the privately conducted exhaustive investigation conducted by Popular Mechanics and many others, by the way, and the experts who were consulted. The inside job theory does not stand with me. The controlled demolition allegation, to me, is fantastic and ridiculous. The notion that the Bush administration, inept and incompetent at everything else, might have successfully masterminded the biggest cover-up of all time as a strategic excuse to invade the Middle East for oil is ludicrous to the extreme. The angle, velocity, and 500-mile-an-hour impact of the planes and the explosion of jet fuel do explain the compromise of the structural integrity of the towers. Hundreds of eyewitnesses actually saw the plane hit the Pentagon. Plane debris was recovered from the scene. Building 7 damaged by the kinetic energy of the main tower's destruction. Bin Laden and al-Qaeda operatives, many captured on security cameras, planned and executed the attacks and took credit. By the way, it wasn't the first attempts at toppling the World Trade Center. Anybody remember 1993? This particular terrorist organization has a long history of attacks directed at the United States and other free nations, including attacks of our embassy and the bombing of the USS Cole. This conclusion does not mean that I believe America's past actions regarding bin Laden have been squeaky clean. I don't. It doesn't imply that I endorse the invasion of Iraq or the Iraq War. I don't. Doesn't mean I'm a fan of Bush or Cheney. It doesn't mean I'm a stooge of any government or have adopted a religious mentality because I disagree with the truthers. And this is an accusation I hear all the time. You're just like the religious man. No. I've seen credible, well-documented evidence presented against the claims of the truther crowd. I've seen information and used reason to draw a conclusion. And if that conclusion happens to align with the widely accepted view, then so be it. It's not about a majority or fitting in. It's about what do the facts say. And I drew my conclusion. I hope you add up the facts and draw yours. It's important to remember that skepticism and paranoia are not the same thing. And while the Internet's a tremendous resource for information, it's incumbent upon us to practice due diligence to check our sources and erect our arguments upon a solid foundation. Now, I disagree that all opinions in this world have merit. Certainly, we should absorb and examine opposing points of view. Some viewpoints should be accepted and embraced. Others should be quickly discarded. And I believe, personally, that the conspiracy claims regarding 9/11 fall into the latter category. It's going to be an interesting weekend. And certainly we're watching the headlines hoping that there are no 10th anniversary attacks planned somewhere. And you know it'll be something that no one expects. If it happens, it'll be something that, it won't be a plane flying into a building. It will be something totally different. Something completely unexpected. We always seem to be about a half a step behind. Anyway, your thoughts on 9/11, anything else on your mind as we spend another hour together? Let me start with the phones. I'll go to area code 586. 586, hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
My name's Alex. I'm the only atheist among probably my entire family, relatives. We have a mixture of animism, shamanism. On my mom's side, they're Mormon. On my fiance's side, Southern Baptist.
Well, that'll make for an interesting family reunion. You got to get together some Mormons and Baptists and hang out.
One of the topic was weird rituals, and I see those all the time because I'm known which is a minority in Southern Asia, and we practice shamanism. So we get shamanistic rituals, animal sacrifices, I guess you would say. When my neighbors see something like that, I'm pretty sure they automatically assume that we're devil worshippers or something.
All right, hang on, because I'm just not tracking. We have one family with a Mormon background, the other with Baptist, and you're talking about animal sacrifice?
Well, my fiancée side, she's Hmong too, but they're Southern Baptist. When I was arguing with my family about this, was one of my friends stated that she finds comfort when she gets sick, when her parents sacrifices a chicken for her to get better. She finds comfort in that, and I find comfort in that. And I told her, no, I do not find comfort in my parents sacrificing a chicken for me.
If it's some original recipe with mashed potatoes and gravy, I would find comfort in that too.
Yes.
The idea that somebody's in bed with a thermometer in their mouth and they bring in Fanny the hen with an axe. It just seems kind of morbid right there. Appreciate the call, Alex. Take care of yourself, okay?
You too, sir. Thank you.
Hendricks. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
This is Henry from Texas.
Yeah, what's up? Speak nice and loud so I can hear you.
I'm sorry. About the whole 9/11 thing, I think when it comes to Christians actually wanting to put up a cross, they shouldn't be so up in arms when Muslims want to build a mosque, only because it just makes them look like a whole bunch of hypocrites.
Well, they argue that it was the Muslim faith that was the problem, which, I think we're speaking about Islamic extremist, Al-Qaeda, all those guys. My challenge is that whenever you say something like you shouldn't have a cross at 9/11, you always come off like the bad guy. How can you not want a cross at a place where so many people died? What's the matter with you? Don't you have a heart? I mean, I hear so much of this, And it's one of those things where you have to actually stop them and calm them down and reduce the level of emotion and say, look, listen to the logic of the argument that we're making. And the people I have met who, if I can get them to calm down, and I actually state the case why there should not be a cross. It's like prayer. They're saying they don't want people to pray from the podium during the ceremonies. It's horrible. And I'm like, you know what? No one's saying that no one can pray. If you go out to the 9/11 memorial, pray until your heart's content. Pray your heart out, whatever. I'm just saying it should not be sanctioned or propagated from the stage as part of the official ceremony. I just don't think, because then it just excludes everybody else. It makes it overtly Christian. I mean, that makes sense to me. And normally if I have a chance to explain it, it tends to soften them a little bit. I don't know. What's your take on it?
I think that by putting up a cross, it kind of just gives the giant middle finger to every other faith or lack of faith that anyone else died in there.
Well, I appreciate the call, Hendricks. Thanks for being part of the show, man.
Yep.
Again, I encourage you to check out Dave Silverman. I think you can just Google it, Dave Silverman 9/11 Cross. I'll bet you find the article. I've got a 254 number. Hi, thanks for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is Sarah.
What's up, Sarah? What's going on?
Well, I was excited to see that you were doing a show today simply because I've been kind of annoyed, particularly annoyed in the last few days. I live in Texas, and you may know that my governor recently distinguished himself as the guy who asked everybody to pray for rain.
I remember.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really find that particularly offensive, just embarrassing, really. But now, about half the state is on fire. We haven't got rain. We've got wind and fire, and thousands of homes have been destroyed. And I'm just surrounded by the most hypocritical, blind people, and they're driving me crazy.
Let me read from the proclamation. This was issued on April the 21st. For those who live outside of the country, Texas Governor Rick Perry actually issued a proclamation with the state of Texas seal on it. And he goes through all these whereases, and at the bottom he says, "Now therefore I, Rick Perry, Governor of Texas, under the authority vested in me by the Constitution and statutes of the state of Texas, do hereby proclaim the 3-day period from Friday, April 22nd, 2011 to Sunday, April 24th as, all caps, days of prayer for rain in the state of Texas. I urge Texans of all faiths and traditions to offer prayers on those days for the healing of our land, the rebuilding of our communities, and the restoration of our normal way of life." Well, you guys are getting your ass kicked down there. I read 170 wildfires, like how so many acres destroyed. The whole state's on fire.
Yeah, my dad's stepbrother actually lost his house. And, I mean, he was one of, like, over 1,000 people just in one county. And what's more, I mean, I don't want to get into how creepy I found it that Perry also held a big prayer rally before he decided to run for president. Never mind.
Now, do you think he really believes, or do you think it's just a political move? You know, religion's very handy.
I mean, I don't want to get too much into my own political beliefs, but I will tell you this. I think he's a very savvy politician, and I think he will say exactly what he thinks he needs to say to get himself elected.
You know,
and I think it's always been that way.
You know, some of the decisions that he has made as governor, not having to do with prayer or religion, I can support. You know, I mean, he seems to be pro-business and all this stuff, but there's a lot of the stuff where he seems like he's pulpit preaching on the taxpayer dollar, and it drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah. You and me both. And unfortunately, you know, being an atheist down here, it's kind of lonesome country, you know. And you know, just a couple days ago, you know, everyone was singing his praises because he's taken a little time off from his campaign because there's all these fires in Texas, and you know, yeah, he should be doing that. But, you know, my mom turns to me and she's like, "Oh, he is getting such great publicity for this." And I was like, does anybody remember him saying pray for rain? Well,
when I did the speech at Free OK, we were talking about God glasses and how no matter what the scenario is, God comes off as the hero. Why is nobody challenging him after his prayer? He rallied not just a state but a nation to pray for rain. And instead of rain, we have wind and drought and wildfires and destruction, and it's worse than it's ever been. And no one is holding him or God accountable. So if it had rained, you know they'd have been like, "Oh, it's amazing. It's a miracle from the heavens."
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? one day, I don't know when, but one day it is going to rain again. And when it does, they're going to go, oh, thank you, Jesus.
You think so? It'll be October, and they'll be like, boy, God, he prayed in April, and it finally came through.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Hey, I'm glad to hear there's a free thinker in Texas. I know, you'd be surprised. I think there's like an underground in Texas.
There's
Texas
a handful of us, but
is a lot like Oklahoma. I think there are more non-believers than people think, and they're just waiting for for an atmosphere where they're not looking at it down the double barrel of a shotgun.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the truth is, I stay kind of quiet about it around my community, but last year we actually got to see Hitchens debate here in Dallas. And one of the reasons me and a friend of mine went was we figured he'd be the only atheist there, but he wasn't. There was a group, and that was nice. What
was the response when he went up? Did he get a round of applause? Was it kind of tepid?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we were outnumbered. The debate, if you can call it that, happened at a Christian school, but there was a group from the Dallas area. It was like a specific organized atheist group, and so there was kind of a little chunk of them, and they all made quite a bit of noise for him, but we were pretty severely outnumbered.
Seems like when Dawkins... No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I was relieved to see that they were there, that there's more people around here that feel this way than I thought, I guess.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised. I don't know. The tide is beginning to turn, so... Well, I appreciate your call, and honestly, if I thought a rain dance or sacrificing one of Alex's chickens would help you out, I'd do something.
I get the desperation. I really do. I get why he wants to pray because it really is desperate. But for God's sake, so to speak.
Thanks for calling. I appreciate your great call. Take care of yourself down there in Texas, okay?
Thanks, mate. Bye.
I'll tell you what it's like in this part of the country. Richard Dawkins came to Oklahoma a couple of years ago to speak to Oklahoma University. And there was, let me see if I can get this information right. There was a resolution drawn up by State Representative Thompson calling for the University of Oklahoma to withdraw his invitation. And there was this big, long, convoluted edict that essentially said you should just pull out the welcome mat and throw it away. He's not welcome here. That tells you something. What kind of mindset won't listen to an opposing point of view? Even if you disagreed, let's say you were a true blue believer. You believe the Bible 100%. Why would you be threatened in a free country with free speech? Why would you deny to him the very freedom and the very rights that you possess and extol for yourself? But instead, he's like, we don't even want him here. No. All these young minds here, impressionable. Oh, they're about to go out and become the world shakers of tomorrow. The last thing we need is for them to hear from an atheist. And of course, the place was standing room only, and he had a hugely warm reception. And that again reminded me that I'll bet there in Oklahoma, I'll bet there's like an underground. I'll bet there's a huge portion of people who just aren't buying it anymore, and for whatever reason, they're coming out of the closet slowly. But I have a feeling that the tide may be turning. The culture may look a whole lot different here in the next 5 to 10 years. Area code 347. Thank you for waiting. Who's this?
Hello.
What's your name?
My name is Stanley. Great show. I did listen to you when you did the free works and everything. And you are one of the person I respect the most as an atheist. I'm an atheist also. I'm listening to what you're saying. I think a lot of Christian has a problem, like you say, they didn't read their Bible. And me as a person who used to be a Christian, when I come back to them and I said, did you read your Bible? And they say, yes, I did. And when I come back with verses in the Bible that says slavery is accepted, equality between women and men doesn't exist, beating your child is normal, killing 1,000 people is normal, and those things, they say, no, the Bible didn't say that. And when you even come with the verse, especially slavery, They say things like, no, back in those days, slavery wasn't really what they meant to what it is right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? Owning a person is evil in my eyes. You shouldn't own anybody in this world. I don't care if you're saying back in days, just owning a person is evil. And they don't want to listen to it. They don't know. I don't know what's their thought about that. Same thing when I come back with them and I tell them, okay, let's say a good person does everything good in this world. You know, is a charitable person, does everything good, but doesn't believe in God. Do you think he should go to hell? And then they're confronted with that, and they're like, well, I'm not the person to decide. God will decide. No. Is God omnipotent and knows his things? So he's the one who will make that decision and everything. Do you think that person should go to hell? Yes or no? And they don't want to go there. They don't want to go. They don't know the truth. I don't understand why. They don't want to.
The truth is inconvenient, man. I read the Bible in a kind of a tertiary way, and it's amazing the stuff you can rationalize yourself out of. What I hear with slavery is, well, it wasn't slavery back then. It was indentured servanthood. They were indentured servants. It was part of the culture, and, they were treated so well. So then, of course, I go into the scriptures where they say, it's okay, according to God's law, to beat your slaves for a couple of days as long as they can get up after you're done.
Exactly.
There's no, well, it was, you know what, it's different back. It was a different time. It's honestly, it's thinking of a child. And they wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, or they come with the thing, it's the Old Testament, the New Testament, it's Jesus and everything. And then you could tell them, okay, but do you know that Jesus said in the New Testament, not one law will be changed because of the Old Testament? That's written in the Bible also. I didn't came in this world to change any law. Let me tell you what the Bible is for.
The Bible is something that you decorate your house with and you carry to church and you cherry pick happy scriptures. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. It's something that makes you feel good, that gives you comfort. But honestly, most people, they're not all that interested in what's inside.
Exactly.
They're just not. Exactly. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it very much. Oh, go ahead.
One last thing. Yeah, one last thing and everything. You know the famous thing that they say, love thy neighbor as myself? The thing that they forget, they say that Jesus, when he said that, he was love thy neighbor, that means Jew people. That's what they meant. He didn't mean love thy neighbor, that means everybody else. Because I did some research and everything, and a lot of people who were very good in those things, they said back in those days, what Jesus meant was love the Jew. You know the famous
I hadn't heard that. I'll have to check on that. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to move quickly through a few calls here. I've got some calls that are easier to hear and more fluid than others. Now that I look at the Bible, I find myself a little bit embarrassed by the stuff that I excused or skipped over in the past. And I think some of it's fear. They teach you to, don't challenge God. Don't, God will not be mocked. And so you don't, and that's it's a sacred cow. That's kind of the wrong religion there. But you know what I mean? But now that I go back as a non-believer, it's kind of liberating to call these verses out and to mock them and to say, here's a great example. You know the story in the New Testament about Jesus? Let me look it up here. I think Mark chapter 11. Right, there it is. And on the morrow, when they'd come out of Bethany and Jesus hungered, I'm paraphrasing here, seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, he came, if perhaps he might find anything thereon. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season of figs. And he answered and said unto it, no man will eat fruit from you from now on forever. So he cursed the fig tree, and it withered away at the roots. Well, looking back now as a non-believer, as a skeptic, I'm thinking, you know what? I wouldn't want to follow any omnipotent being who didn't know when figs were in season. He spun the universe into motion, but he has no idea that figs are out of season, and then he gets pissed, and he curses the tree. Bible's full of great, priceless stories like that. Non-believers, they're not all that interested in hearing those. Area code 850. Hi, who's this? Hello?
Hi. This is,
what's your name?
Brian, Florida.
Speak nice and loud for me. What's on your mind?
I came across this very interesting article about the NAR, something that Rick Perry and Michelle Bachmann and the political Republicans are part of, called the New Apostolic Reformation Movement. Have you heard about that?
No, I sure haven't.
It's apparently a very well-funded Christian fundamentalist movement doing like dominionism across parts of the U.S. I mean, it sounds really like it could never take hold, and it's one of those crazy things that doesn't really do anything in the long run. But just Rick Perry part of this, and it's scaring me because he's winning.
Well, we'll check it out. The New Apostolic Reformation, is that what it's called?
Yeah, and also I came across it because my mother, who is extremely Pentecostal Christian, sent me a video because she keeps, praying for me and all that, of Mike Bickle, the Kansas City guy, talking about how this is he's going to change people through Jesus and all that. It's a very interesting thing to look at.
Thank you very much for calling the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a challenge for those of us who are, how do I say this? I feel like politically I'm already exhausted. And here in America, our presidential election is not for a year and 2 months. I'm exhausted. The posturing and the speeches and the accusations and the finger pointing and the insanity. And I'm like, geez, another 14 months of this. And, I feel like I'm a man without I don't have a candidate. I do not support or I'm not at all a fan of Obama's policies. Not at all. I do not like the fact that conservatives have decided that they're going to become pulpit preachers. They've all become Glenn Beck. They're out to not just change policy, but to change it for God. That's just scary. So if you're someone like me who is, doesn't fall into the stereotypical, hard left thing, and if you're someone who's, I'm a fan of the free market. I know it's a complex thing. I know I'm a conservative. I'm a fan of low taxes. I think the government needs to be small and get the heck out of my life. I'm just one of those people. But I look at Bachmann and Palin and what Perry. Is this the best we have? And honestly, the answer is no. I think, honestly, when we look at our political systems, and I'd be curious to hear how it works in the rest. I'll bet it's the same in every other country in the world. But, most of the people who are truly qualified to lead, they're not interested in the job. They don't need it. They don't need the adulation. They don't need the constant star making. They don't need the podium and the meet the press dates and the book deals. They've gone off into the business world and they've already staked their claim. They're making a difference already. They don't require living on somebody else's dime, on a taxpayer dollar. They don't require the limo rides and all this stuff. Or they're going to go out and earn it, and do it themselves. I honestly think that when we get into politics, it's just the people that were left over that we get to choose from. And I watch the news and I just think, I can't do another 14 months of this. I'm just going to put my head against the wall. Is this all we've got? And then people will sometimes say, do you think we'll ever have an atheist president? And I agree with Daniel Dennett. I think we've had atheist presidents. They were just politically astute enough to keep their mouths shut. And they went to church on Sunday and they looked good for the cameras. But it is my hope one day we see someone who will publicly just walk out and say, I just don't buy it, but I am qualified to lead, and here's why, and just be real about it. I don't know. You think people would vote for an atheist here in America? Somebody who is overtly atheist? I mean, you think he's going to get a state of Texas behind him, or Oklahoma, Kansas? Anybody in the South? You think he's going to get any support? Or do you think they're just going to light up the torches? Area code 647. Thank you so much for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hi, it's Keaton.
What's going on, Keaton? What's up?
I actually just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you. 2 years ago, I actually met a girl in the 10th grade. We dated for 4 months, and then we were broken up for about 6 months. And long story short, in those 6 months, she basically attended Jesus camp, and we got back together. And that's when I found out that she had gone through a process of conversion to Christianity. She was raised in a Christian household, but it wasn't that tight for her. But herself, she became really tight in those 6 months. So, in the beginning, when we started dating again, after the 6 months, she said, my fellow Christians are telling me not to waste my time with a non-believer. But I think it'll be okay. When they meet you, they'll be fine with it. So that was in the beginning. And then over time, I'm one of those feeler type people that you talk about. I was raised an agnostic, so I was lucky that way. If I was raised a Christian, I would have been very, very, very devout. But still, I was a feeler. So when I was with this girl, I ended up joining the Christian faith for about 7 months. Because I was raised an agnostic, I questioned it at every step, and that just didn't fly with her, And I'm really into biology, and I'm currently going into life science at the University of Toronto, and I plan on going into genetics. And when she found out that I was planning on doing that, she immediately said, don't you see anything wrong with it? You're going to be playing God, and you're going to be, basically she was discouraging me to go into the depths of the human organism where only God's supposed to be. And I found that very, very irritating and very unfair that, she would threaten to even end the relationship over that, just the fact that I was choosing that career path.
Well, how old are you? Wait a minute.
I'm 18 now.
Well, I'm not Dr. Phil here, but I see some huge red flags. I'm not saying that a relationship between a believer and a non-believer can't work. Geez, I'm in one. The woman I love and have been with for many years she's a deist. But on it, we treat each other with respect. She's actually helped me package up and ship Thinking Atheist coffee mugs around the world. We support each other. But there's a mutual respect. If you've got someone who doesn't understand or is trying to subvert you left and right, and they are a life partner, that's a problem, dude.
I agree with you, and honestly, this was my first relationship, and obviously I was, hopelessly romantic. I really wanted to make things work with her, and you're right. I did overlook a lot. I could see them, and they were blatantly wrong. But love makes you blind, just like religion, in different ways. But at the end of the day, even like 2 weeks before I had to, cut it off, she said to me that I am at a stage in my life where I know what I want. And what I want is a person who can lead me in my faith and take me to church on Sundays. And for me, I just, having joined the faith, I just went there to find a community of innocent people. I go to a school where there's a lot of stuff that I just can't be part of, and I don't find myself to be the typical teenager. Now I'm 18. I'm in university now.
Well, dude, imagine it's not just that. Let's say that this is true love, and you end up together. Then you have kids.
Yes.
Now we're talking about are they raised as skeptics, or are they raised under the cloak of the faith? You've got a long road ahead of you. I'm not saying it's impossible. In fact, I have many people who are in my chat room right now and who've sent me messages throughout the years who say that it is possible and they have made it work. But I'll tell you, that's probably the exception and not the rule. But I do wish you the best, and I appreciate the call very much.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I encourage this guy to go in and study biology and get into it. I was given a book. I love it when the religious co-opt scientists into their arguments. I was given a book by Stephen C. Meyer. It's called Signature in the Cell, DNA and the Evidence for Intelligent Design. It's a big old book that essentially says that at the cellular level, there is proof that we were designed. We could not have evolved, and here's why. And again, if you're wearing God glasses, you don't stop to think. Okay, well, if the signature is in the cell, with heaven and hell in the balance, you have literally kept the billions of people born before the invention of the microscope out of the discussion. They didn't know what a cell was. They didn't have the tools we have to examine DNA. So what did they? Well, they must have just looked up at the cloud formations, and it was, even the Bible says in creation and in conscience, people just know. Well, okay. A few more. Area code 705. Thanks for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is Chantel.
Chantel, what's going on? Thanks for calling.
Oh, not much. I actually just wanted to share something. A few months ago, I was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and trying to, at this point as well, like I've been an atheist for at least a year, and trying to come out to my father, who's a very devout Roman Catholic, has been very, very difficult, as I'm sure you could imagine.
Sure.
He is, every single time I talk to him or any member of that particular part of the family, they're like, oh, we'll pray for you. I just kind of smile and nod because I understand that they feel helpless and there's really not much that anybody can do. So, I just like, well, I appreciate your thoughts and, I'll take goodwill in any form it comes, and I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the diagnosis. For those who don't understand Lou Gehrig's, there's no cure, as I understand it, and is it a progressive thing that attacks the muscles in the nervous system?
It attacks the motor neurons, which stop the muscles from being able to be used. Yeah.
So essentially, it's a digression of motor function as you progress, resulting eventually in what? Is it paralysis? I mean, what's the?
Eventually, it can lead to the diaphragm stop working. So it leads to that, more or less. Yeah.
How are you doing? I mean, I'm sure it hit you like a ton of bricks. And now at this moment, where are you at? I mean, in your mind, in your heart, are you holding together here?
Most days I do great. I actually just got married to a very, very wonderful man who's taking very good care of me. And some days it just kind of hits me. But generally I'm doing okay. I'm actually involved in a clinical trial of a drug that seems to be showing some promise. It's definitely slowing down my my decline. And, actually just a couple weeks ago, we found out that they have found what looks to be the cause. So I'm very, very, excited, and I hope that, the research comes along really quickly.
So, Chantel, are people telling you every day, we're praying for you, I'm praying for you, or? Oh,
yeah, I get it a lot, and it's something that just kind of rolls off me now.
Well, I think if it comes from a good place, I don't discourage. People tell me all the time. I know people at this moment are probably on their knees praying for me, and I don't discourage that. Knock yourself out. Yeah. But as an atheist, I mean, do you speak about non-belief? Do you speak about the fact that you've put your trust in science and not in God? Have you addressed it, or are we just kind of avoidance here?
I did. Around the time when I was first diagnosed, when my father was adamant that I see a faith healer, which, he eventually dropped because I was just like, no.
What are we talking about? Are we talking like a Protestant pulpit preacher who laying on of hands and stuff, or what?
It was somebody who apparently had a Catholic relic of a saint. I think it was the bone of a saint or something that supposedly had healing powers. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know how to put
I think as a parent, I mean, I can understand wanting to try about anything, I mean, I get it, and I understand what comfort's about, I think they probably they're scared to death for you.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm encouraged to hear that you're part of some groundbreaking procedures. I would hope that, in fact, if you'll jot down my email, it's editor@thethinkingatheist.com. Give me an update here in a few weeks. Let me know how things are going. I'd be curious to kind of follow this story if you're comfortable sharing it. Okay, Chantel?
Oh, not a problem, actually. I'm involved in two other studies aside from this clinical trial. But yeah, I've shot you a few emails already.
Yeah, if you blog it or something, send me a link and allow me to kind of. I think some people might want to follow this particular story, and all of our very best to you, and I appreciate you sharing. Honestly, when things go wrong, people tend to just play the God card. Mm-hmm. And for you to be a free thinker, a skeptic, an agnostic, atheist, whatever you call yourself during a difficult time, it's pretty gutsy, and I admire you greatly for doing it.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling the show. Appreciate you, Chantel.
No problem.
All right. I'm trying to decide exactly how to move out of that call. You think about the time we live in. There's a poster that says, "Do you know why you never see faith healers treating polio? Because science already cured it." That's exactly how I feel. This is someone. They have an illness or disease or some sort of, they're infirmed in some way, and science is the solution, and people play the God card. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. And honestly, I'm grateful to be living in a time when so many scientific breakthroughs are happening in front of our eyes. Will we see a cure for cancer in our lifetime? I don't know. Will we see a cure for Lou Gehrig's disease? I hope so, yeah. Multiple sclerosis. I've got a member of my family who's got MS. And we're living in a time when solutions are starting to happen, And not just the pie in the sky stuff that was done back in the early days of medicine when we didn't know how we worked at the cellular level, when we didn't really understand. We're still discovering so much about the human body and the machine of who we are and how we work, but back in the day when they were bleeding people out, slice them open and bleed them. We'll bleed the sickness out of them. Those days are gone. Essentially, we're living in a time when anything's possible. And I'm encouraged about that. And I'm glad that Chantel is alive in a time when science is breaking down the barriers every day. I'd be curious to hear how this story unfolds. It's going to be amazing. 406, thanks for waiting. Hi, you are on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
This is Tiffany.
Tiffany, what's going on?
Not much. I was actually having some conversations on Facebook about the cross on the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. And one person that's defending it to the very end is a really good friend of mine, and he's gay. What boggles my mind is why he would defend something that God obviously says in the Bible that he hates. I'm trying to figure out why he would defend something so much.
I'm not sure I understand. What does God hate? Does he hate homosexuality, or does he hate the cross?
Homosexuality.
Why is he being God's advocate when God has not been his? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
I see a lot of, in my own circle, I don't know, can you tell me what part of the country you're in, just relatively? You don't have to spill the beans, but are you in the Midwest? Where do you live?
Northwest.
Okay. Well, I don't know about your part of the country, but in mine, the people who are staunch conservatives, they are often tagged as hating gay people. They hate homosexuals. And I don't see that as an accurate description. I see fear. A dear friend of mine, best friend in the world, we've known each other for 27 years, announced over a decade ago that he was gay. And I was a believer at the time, and it was very traumatic for me. But when I told the people around me who were very staunch conservative, very, very straight-laced believers, I think it was fear. You're not going to go down there, are you? You're not going to go hang out now, are you? You're not going to stay friends, are you? You're not going to spend time down there, are you? And I honestly, I don't see hate. I think it's We don't want to know. Don't even come near me. I they're just la 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 la. And I don't know if they're afraid that he's going to taint me, would I become gay, or would I become an advocate for gays, which, by the way, has happened. I mean, do you see fear, or do you think it's about hate? What causes that kind of ostracization?
Well, I grew up in a very conservative Christian family, which is not very common here in the Northwest. You'd think you would see that more in the South where you are. But my brother wanted to get an earring, and that was considered gay, and that meant he wasn't part of the family. I grew up as a gay-hating person, and did you hate gay people? Come on, did you hate them? No, that's how I was raised, though.
I see.
But I was told, God abhors homosexuality. Homosexuality is a grave sin to God, and I have the Bible verses to back it up. Now, why? I guess how can someone's faith be so warped as to completely ignore those verses that I try to point out that I was raised with, and that I don't want my 6-year-old son to be raised with? How can they defend something so horrible?
I don't know. I mean, I saw some arguments today that were, why do people promote the cross, this horrible device of unbelievable torture and death? And, of course, Christians wear it around their neck as jewelry. They get cross earrings and crosses hanging from the mirrors of their car, and crosses, and they see it as a sign of redemption. But honestly, if you look up the cross, it's a pretty evil way to go. It's pretty hardcore. I don't understand what makes people tick, but my hope would be that people start to see the bigger picture and see that this isn't a Christian day. It's not a Mormon day. It's not a Jehovah's Witness day. It's not a Catholic day. It's not a Muslim day. This is a day for people who want to honor those we lost. And I honestly do believe that I'm going to take time along with many, many others on that morning. We're going to have a moment of silence. We're going to remember the dead. We're going to remember what we were doing that day and why it's important to protect ourselves against the rogue elements on this planet. Why Al-Qaeda and radical Islam should be opposed. And I mean, I hope that some of these arguments we're having will help people focus on what's really important. I appreciate the call very much.
Well, can I say one more thing? Me and my mom were having this argument, and I said, they should build a memorial that's neutral. And she told me that nothing in this world is neutral, and that Christians have this right to have the cross wherever they want, and what everybody else believes and what everybody else thinks doesn't really matter.
Yeah, she essentially has withdrawn the rights from everybody else that she holds and holds precious to herself. Yeah, I understand. It happens every day. Great call. Thanks for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of people who've been on hold for a little while here. Let me see if I can get these in before we wrap it up. It's kind of a loose show tonight. There's kind of a little bit of everything. I hope it's been okay. It's a Skype call. I just see a 111. You've been on hold for a little while. Who's this?
Hello?
Hi. Who's this?
All right, hold on a second. Yes, hi, sir.
What's your name?
Thomas.
Thomas, what's going on?
Hi, I just wanted to talk about 9/11 for a second here. Mm-hmm. Well, first, I want to propose an alternate theory. I think Islam wasn't exactly all that was involved in it. I think our military foreign policy has a lot to do with why exactly, they hate us, because we're over there in their country, have bases over there, and, if China was in our country, I wouldn't like that. So, I think that, us being over there in Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, we're not making friends over there. And I also wanted to touch on the 9/11 conspiracy things, and it's just nonsense if you ask me. I mean, you hit it right on the nail. I don't think our government is competent enough to pull off something so big. I mean, they can't get anything right. But
so do you think we had it coming? You think we deserve it, 9/11?
I don't think we deserved it, but, you know, there's a concept called blowback, and it's happened throughout history. I mean, you can go back to Iran in 1952, 53, I think, when we installed the Shah, and you can tell our blowback came in 1979, and that's what started the whole Iran conflict we're having.
Well, you and I agree. I mean, anyone who does any digging knows that we've had our hands in foreign policy in the Middle East and have supported many people who are now advocates of terror. I mean, that's just, I honestly believe that there have been rogue elements that the U.S. has supported. Now, we didn't know or didn't care at the time. However, I don't
really
believe.
Critical. Oh, go ahead, Seth.
Go ahead. You called me, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I'm really critical of Libya because, you know, we went in there when we weren't even sure who these rebels were, and, you know, they might end up being some extreme Islamic terrorists or something. We don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'm really skeptical about Libya right now.
Well, here's the line in the sand that I draw, okay? I disagree that we made them hate us. We made them conduct terrorist attacks against us. We fed the beast, and it is because of what America has done or free nations have done that they do what they do. It's not cause and effect. I just don't buy it. I think no matter what we do, they will hate us. Christopher Hitchens had an article that was just released 3 days ago in Slate called, and it was titled, Simply Evil. A decade after 9/11, it remains the best description and most essential fact about Al-Qaeda. And he uses the word evil. And essentially, I agree with him. They are commanded to exterminate us. They are driven to either convert us or wipe out the infidel. And it doesn't matter what we do to placate them. It doesn't matter how kind and how understanding we are toward their point of view. Quite frankly, I am of the belief that radical Islam will only understand brute force. I think we have to do whatever we have to protect ourselves. We're not going to negotiate with people who believe that they will go and receive 72 virgins by exterminating women and children. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is like, you know, I mean, they're not out there bombing Europe or anything. They're not
they are.
Norway.
Dude, they are attacking free nations all around the world. They are not just attacking America. There's been blood spilled all over the planet, and I honestly don't think placating them or walking softly around them is the solution. All that does is communicate weakness. Right now, I think we have to communicate strength, whatever that means. Does it mean invading Iraq? I don't believe so. You know. But I'll tell you, if somebody threatens to come in here on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 and kill another 3,000 people, I don't know about you, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening. You know.
Of course. I mean, I think the general rule should be, I mean, you have to kind of protect your nation at home and not be overseas, because we're not making friends there for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting weekend. I appreciate your call. Thanks for waiting so long. I'm sorry it took me a while to get to you, but thanks for being a part of the show.
One more thing?
Oh, yeah, quickly. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as an atheist, when you become an atheist, it seems like the value of life just shoots up, like, exponentially. Like, not even human life, just animal life. Like, you know, I try to play with my dog every chance I get because, you know, I know he's not going to be around forever. And I just wanted to also say about the one lady with the one disease, what was Lou Gehrig's?
Oh, she has Lou Gehrig, yeah.
Yeah, my heart goes out to her. Like, that's going to be difficult, and, you know, that it's kind of heartbreaking.
But she's not alone. You know, I mean, there are those in the religious community who believe that because she is an atheist, she is now isolated. She has no system of support. And I guarantee you, everybody within the sound of our voices right now wishes they were standing right next to her to put their arms around her and to hug her and to say, "We got you."
I'm definitely there with you.
We're hugging you, Chantel.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, man.
Thank you for your time, Seth.
Take care of yourself very much.
All right,
bye. Because you don't believe in an afterlife, you do tend to cherish this life a little more, don't you? I mean, imagine what it's like spending all of your energies in this life preparing for what happens after you're dead. Think of all the opportunities you miss. I see life differently now that I'm not thinking about heaven. And you know something that's interesting? You'll notice if you keep your eyes open and you're talking to religious people, and they won't admit it, but the people who believe in heaven and believe they're going there, I'll bet you they're afraid of dying. Now, they won't admit it, but when they talk about death, or when they talk about the death of someone else or themselves, watch their faces and body language. Now, if heaven is the best place ever, why are you afraid of death? For me, it was becoming a non-believer, adding up all the puzzle pieces and realizing that I don't buy the afterlife, that I began to realize that we must maximize every moment here, and I no longer fear death. I don't. It's weird. Now that there's no heaven with eternal bliss, I don't fear dying. A psychologist could probably spend an hour and a half on that. Area code 708. Thank you for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Marty. How are you?
Marty, I'm sorry it's taken me. I've got you on the switchboard for looks like almost an hour.
You know what? Once you started bringing up politics and your girlfriend, we were already talking about religion. I thought I was on the worst date ever. So just listening from there. I actually have a question, but I'd like to preface it with a few things. The gentleman just brought up the woman with Lou Gehrig's, and as we are all free thinkers and question everything, I would like her just to look into nutrition, because as we ponder religion and maybe how we grew up, we should also wonder what doctors are saying. And really, nutrition is amazing. So just look into that. And positive energy, not meaning that actually positivity and energy can actually change you, but the less stress you have, the better you do. Our hearts all obviously go out to her.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I totally get what you're saying. I mean, be positive. You know, you find people who live positive lives and have a positive outlook, honestly, tend to do better. I know someone, I've got a friend who's got multiple sclerosis. He has been able to minimize his symptoms through diet. He got all the junk and the fat and the junk food out of his, and he totally changed how he ate. And the guy he has had a transformation in his body. So I totally get that. I mean, I think there's a lot of merit. If you eat healthy and you manage your diet, it seems to be sort of the foundation that everything else gets laid on. So what else you got for me?
Okay, so I just also wanted to say that I grew up, thank God, with my mom. I was raised by two actors who were just totally free thinkers, never baptized. They let me choose my religion. So I'd also like to say I'm so proud of the people raised religiously that actually had the strong minds to think for themselves. I didn't have to actually go that far, so I think that's amazing. But as I call myself agnostic for quite a while. So what it came about is I just had so many gay friends all my life. Oak Park, Illinois, I was raised. It's a pretty big gay community. I looked into religion, couldn't understand why they didn't like them. Then I realized the circular reasoning in itself didn't even make sense. So then I kind of said, I'm agnostic. Well, then I started actually learning about things, and now I realize I'm actually atheist. So in that, I've now come to the conclusion, because you can jump over that and think religion is actually then bad for, people living. Now, I believe religion is bad because it shows that it teaches ignorance, that believing in something that is not true is going to in some way help you or blah, blah, blah. So you're not actually asking the questions that need to be asked, and it's bad. However, do you believe, because this is the question I've come to, that people that are bad are using religion as an excuse, or that religion is actually creating these people that are extremists and not good in whatever sense you want to?
Well, I don't want to. Are you asking me specifically, or is it a rhetorical question to the audience?
No, it's you, because it's not rhetorical. I want to hear an answer. I'm asking you because it seems like you've really, obviously, as a thinking atheist, have thought a lot about what does and doesn't happen, and you've had a lot of chances to think about all of this. So
you and I agree. Richard Dawkins has a great quote. He says, "I'm against religion because it teaches us to be satisfied with not understanding the world."
Right.
I think that's such a great encapsulation of what religion does. It totally limits us. I don't want to be too much of a politician, but I agree with. I had Phil Hellenis on a podcast a few months ago, and he said, a good person will be a good Christian, or they'll be a good atheist. I mean, I think there are some people who are going to be good or evil, and I use the word evil not as an evil spirit, but evil deeds. They do actions that I consider evil. I'm not afraid of the word evil. I think evil does exist. People do evil things all the time, the abuse of children and all those things. However, because I do believe that religion causes people to do things that they may not, some people to do things that they would not ordinarily do. Christopher Hitchens talks all the time about, who woke up that first day and decided, hey, I'd like to saw off part of the genitalia of a child with a sharp stone. I mean, only religion would make that something where you go, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So I think there are examples of people who are good people, whether they are religious or not. But there are also, I think, just as many examples of people who will conduct an action or do something with a religious motive that they normally wouldn't otherwise do. You think about all the religious wars and the people who've done horrific things in the name of God because God told them so. And
you don't think that there's a more logical explanation, like peer pressure, just as like Hitler? I think the whole freaking thing was peer pressure, to be honest with you.
I heard a great.
Maybe it was under God, but that there was a more logical, like human, innate kind of thing that you follow, that you want to be,
Well, there's a mob mentality. Let me throw this out. Now, I don't know if this is accurate, but let me throw this out, and this is a perspective I had not heard before. They were talking about after the First World War in Germany, many of the men were killed, and many of the I'm going to need to do some due diligence and follow up, but I'm just throwing this out, okay? And the argument was that many of the family units in Germany had grown up fatherless, and Hitler came along, a strong authoritative figure, and called it the fatherland. And so that was one of the reasons that so many people had gravitated, because it was like Hitler's Germany had become the father. I'd be curious to hear someone who was more educated on the culture in that time period than I am too. Mm-hmm. But honestly, charismatic people, you get a mob mentality, you get cultural pressure, you get religious influence. I think it's nothing that you and I are going to solve in this show together, for sure.
What? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm glad. Honestly, I'm glad to hear you found. It's not. Honestly, are you happier as an atheist? Are you happy?
Oh my God! You said at one point in this talk, you said I kind of feel liberated, and not like you could hear me at the point, but I was like, kinda. It's the most liberating thing ever. Are you kidding? It's so liberating. Not just liberating, because I never thought there was God watching me or anything like that. It's just liberating to know the truth.
Do you take a lot of heat for? Do you take any ribbing for saying, "Oh my God"? Because I do all the time. I go, "Oh my God."
No, I don't. You know what? Not a lot of people challenge me. I'm very strong, like. I
do it as a reflex, and doesn't mean I believe in God. It's just a figure of speech. Oh my God! And they're like, "Wait a minute, aren't you an atheist?" And I have to go into that.
I get a lot of heat saying "OMG." No, I'm just kidding. Because I don't, but I should watch that.
No. I don't think you should stop doing it or apologize, but I take a lot of ribbing for it. Or I've actually, and a few times, I think I actually slipped and said, "Thank God." And what I was saying is, I'm just thankful. But it was a reflex. I'm like, no.
You got to hear yourself say "Thank God," and then right after you hear yourself.
Well, I don't want to do what a lot of people do and say. I'm not going to say like "Thank Darwin." I mean, that's just bogus.
Oh, that's silly.
Hey, thanks for the call. Very, very much.
Sure. Take care.
Honestly, there are some cornball alternatives to to religious sayings or God-oriented sayings. And I love Daniel Dennett's work. I'm a huge fan of Daniel Dennett. I watch his lectures on YouTube along with Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins and Sam Harris and those guys. But he did a deal where he took some classic Christian hymns or Christian songs and they replaced them with pro-science lyrics. And, of course, everybody in the room was listening. He was playing this. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is just dumb. Replacing God with science, it just wasn't working for me. And sometimes we try awfully hard to co-opt religious things into the secular mindset. But, I'm guilty. Oh, my God. And I've got to come back. So I got to break that habit and set a good example. I'm coming up here on the close of the show. I want to say thank you very, very much. It's been kind of a wild summer. It was. I had a chance to do my first public appearance at the Oklahoma Free Thought Convention. By the way, those speeches are all on iTunes now, downloadable. So if you can't watch them on YouTube, you can certainly download them. And I think most of them translate to the podcast. I mean, there's a lot of PowerPoint. Some of those things get lost, especially in Abby Smith's speech. But, I mean, she was just a joy and so smart and so wise. And everybody's got kind of a unique thing. But that's opened up some opportunities. I'm speaking in Oklahoma City in a couple of months. I may get a chance to be a part of an event in Texas next year. I know Matt Delahunty had contacted me. I'm part of a charity that's going on with DPR Jones for the Doctors Without Borders charity, and they're doing a 24-hour podcast Skype marathon, and they've asked me to do an hour. And, of course, I'm very honored to be a part of that, as I think atheists above all should be charitable, should be people who are making our world a better place, and not just in happy songs that sound good on TV, but in tangible ways. We're hands-on. We don't pray to the sky, but we want to try to do something to make things better for other people. And so the Doctors Without Borders charity, and I'll post those links online and make sure everybody knows what's up. I myself have no idea how it works. I'm not sure how the Skype switchboard is. I've got to get a Skype camera working now, and I'm a little self-conscious. I looked at myself on the video from the Free OK event, and I'm like, I look like I'm storing nuts in my cheeks. I miss the days when I was younger and skinnier. 43, man. I'm just not recovering like I used to. I appreciate you being a part of this special, sort of an impromptu evening, and I hope it's a fantastic week. And I will have a fall podcast schedule up here in the next, probably in the next week or so, and we'll have the next several months laid out. I'm going to put links on the homepage, and everybody can see when it's happening, exactly how it's happening, if we're going to have a topic, what we're going to be doing, and how. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. Thanks for being a part of The Thinking Atheist. Online, thethinkingatheist.com. We'll see you next time.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on The Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. TheThinkingAtheist.com.